Thank you, everybody. I'm very cognizant of the fact that this is the first session after lunch, so I will try my best to make this interesting as well as informative. To begin with, how many of you have heard of ONDC? If you can raise your hands. Oh, so everybody seems to have heard of ONDC. How many of you think ONDC is an app that you can download and, do some transactions? Log in, do some transactions. Oh, nobody. Okay. I'm not sure if that's good news or it's bad news, but at least you know about ONDC. I'm going to take a bit of your time today to explain what ONDC is and how MSMEs can use ONDC to their benefit and, have connect with us for, expanding e-commerce pie in India. Can you just check? I think the clicker may not be working properly. Okay, here we go. Okay, so ONDC is set up so that the e-commerce penetration can be moved up for India. As you all know, for MSMEs, it is e-commerce is the way to go. It's at the most efficient cost. It'll open you up to the widest audience for your products, and so therefore e-commerce becomes extremely important for all MSMEs. And how do we expand the pie today in e-commerce is a challenge we are trying to solve for. Currently, you'll see a very significant part of our retail chain is not on e-commerce. It's less than about 7%, as compared to a China or an Indonesia, which is around 14 to 16% or above in some countries, right? B2B e-commerce penetration is even lower. So how do we get this penetration up, and how do we move India on a path where all the MSMEs find it easy to get e-commerce enabled? Can you move to the next slide? Maybe this thing doesn't work as well. Okay, all right. So ONDC has been designed to basically work around 4 or 5 big challenges that are faced by the market today. First, if you want to sell your products on e-commerce today, there is a very limited choice that the sellers have in terms of platforms, right? So if you're selling food, there will be 2 or 3 big platforms where you can go. If you're selling fashion, then again, there will be 1 or 2 platforms that are big that you have to go to. So there aren't many big platforms, very limited choice for the sellers to basically go and sell their products, limited to 2 or 3 players in each sector. The second is that as sellers, you will have to work on those platforms and work as per their conditions, right? So for example, somebody says, I charge X commission. You will have to work with them on X commission. If they say the return window is 30 days, even though you may want to keep it at 10 days, you will still have to work around their conditions of 30 days and so on and so forth, right? So there are many folks who will have their own terms and conditions, and you have to abide by that in order to be able to sell on those platforms. Again, if you say that, okay, you don't want to sell on those platforms and you decide to then build your own platform, then discoverability will be an issue. You will have to work towards acquiring buyers. You will have to work towards acquiring sellers. You will have to set up logistics. You will have to set up payments. You will have to work on cataloging. So all of that becomes very, very tough for any small entrepreneur or a small business to kind of take their products to e-commerce. And therefore, like I said, the barriers to stitching the entire value chain is fairly high. So ONDC basically solves for all of these problems, and this is something that we will go point by point to understand how. Okay, so ONDC works on 2 principles. First, unbundling. Second, interoperability. I will take you through both these principles in 2 different slides, but overall, what does it mean? Unbundling means that you do not have to be part of the entire value chain. You don't need to own the entire value chain for you to get started on e-commerce, which basically means that if you are a seller and you only have products that you want to sell, you don't have to set up payments, you don't have to do specific logistics, you don't have to acquire buyers. You can basically just be part of what you are doing and take only that piece and become part of the overall e-commerce domain. You don't need to be doing the entire piece around buyers, sellers, cataloging, payments, logistics, all of that. You can just pick up specific whatever you are competent at, pick that up, and then become part of the whole value chain. The second principle is interoperability. So when you unbundle things, when you unbundle logistics, where you have people only doing logistics, where you have entities doing only buying, and you have entities only doing selling, you need interoperability. You need one entity to be able to talk to the other entity, hence making the entire ecosystem interoperable. So these are the two basic pillars on which ONDC is structured, and I will take you through them one by one, which will help you understand and stitch the entire piece together. Okay. So as far as interoperability is concerned, today we have many examples of interoperability in our daily lives, which we use, which is the same for ONDC. I'll give you an example, which is the SMTP protocol for emails, right? So if I have a Hotmail and you have a Gmail, we will still be able to interoperate our emails, and we'll be able to talk about, exchange emails without any problems, right? You don't have to have a separate Gmail account for me to talk to. You don't need to have a separate Hotmail account for me to talk to. It is an interoperable system that can work, right? Similarly, within e-commerce, ONDC enables different seller apps, buyer apps, logistics apps, all of the different, entities to talk to each other. So if you are, for example, a buyer, you can log on to any buyer application, and you will be able to see the seller side or seller selection that any app on the ONDC network offers. So it can be across any use case. So if you are, for example, just as an example, if you're using Paytm, you can log on to Paytm and you will be able to see the entire selection they've enabled across all sellers, right? Which means you can go to Paytm and buy clothes, you can book a ticket, you can, any sort of e-commerce and transactions that you can do, you will be able to do it from a single window, right? And you will not require different apps to go to do different things. So you will not have to go to a different app to buy food, you will not have to go to a different app to buy clothes, pharmacy, so on and so forth. So from a single app and a single interface, you will be able to order everything. So that makes it interoperable. Okay, and this is going to talk about unbundling. So today, if you have a closed platform, right, any regular closed platform has 4 or 5 things that that are a part of the entire transaction, which means you search for a product, you build your cart, there's catalog management, there's order fulfillment, and then there's order delivery, and post-order delivery, if there's returns, and there's returns, right? This today is owned end-to-end by one entity based on the platform that you go to. So if you're going to, let's say an Amazon or a Flipkart or a Myntra or any of the other apps, the end-to-end ownership of the entire transaction lies with one party, and therefore you will have to work with their terms and conditions and their entire terms to kind of do the transactions, right? But with ONDC, you will basically have only, if you're a seller, you only need to bring your products on board, right? If you are a logistics provider, you only need to sell logistics on board. You don't have to get into building an entire platform. If you are, like I said, a payments provider, then you can only sell the payment component via using the ONDC protocol, and you will be able to kind of do the entire transaction. So it unbundles all the entities and makes them interoperable, hence building a really big, rich network that allows all entities to participate, lowering down the barriers to entry to e-commerce, which is a big problem today, right? So it is going to be more efficient because you will not, if you are a seller, you will not have to spend money acquiring customers. It is going to be a single registration, so which means that you will only have to register once as a seller or as a buyer to buy a gamut of things, or as a seller to be available to all the buyer side across different platforms. And so this is how ONDC enables that. Sorry, the clicker is not very kind to me today. Yeah. The other way? Okay, so like I explained, we have a buyer and a buyer can go to any number of buyer apps. This is buyer A, buyer app B. So any buyer app you can log on to, use the ONDC protocol, and you will be able to reach the seller selection that is offered by any number of sellers. Similarly, you have logistics providers who will be able to kind of come and interact and be part of the ONDC network without actually having a separate setup with a seller app and a separate setup with a buyer app, right? So if you're a logistics provider, you can just come to the ONDC protocol, use the ONDC protocol, and be connected to the buyers and sellers as well. So this basically makes it a universal buyers and seller, entire network, buyer-seller logistics network that enables the entire gamut of services and products to be brought together in a very efficient manner. This is some of the our network participants, both on all we have about 14 buyer side applications, we have 10 logistics side applications, and we have about 50 seller side applications. We are selling a gamut of products, starting from, like I said, from the personal cares to the fashions to the grocery and food and beverages of the world. We have about 100 million buyers currently, potential buyers currently on the network, and growing. And again, we have a healthy pipeline of network participants who will be, working with us very closely going forward. And these are some of the big names that we have. Of course, there are many more. The idea for ONDC is also to enable this for as many MSMEs as we can. While these are big names, it would the real success of the network will lie when smaller sellers and smaller businesses get connected to us and find it easy to be part of the e-commerce value chain. These are some of the categories and domains that are currently live on the network. We've recently launched B2B, and in B2B, we are currently working on grocery and fashion. Outside of B2B, we have B2C domains, which is, our largest domain is food and beverage, and then followed by grocery. Of course, then we have home and kitchen, electronics, fashion, health and wellness, all of that that got mentioned earlier. Of course, in services, we have mobility as a big service. That is our biggest and largest use case. And we have other players in logistics as well. We will be very shortly, launching financial products as well, and that will encompass the entire gamut of financial products. Ideally, all categories that are transactable on e-commerce will be launched on ONDC eventually, but this is just a bit of a pipeline. So to summarize all the benefits that I was speaking of, for buyers, you have a single platform access. You will only have to log in through one app once, and you will be able to access all domains. It's a unified experience, so you don't have to go to different UI UX to navigate through different UI UX to get to your selection. You have wider options. You have wider choices to be made on what kind of deliveries you might need. You have wider choices to be made in terms of what kind of products might be available. And of course, while these are the buyer side benefits, the ideal case scenario will be where buyer experience becomes a very key differentiator. So it helps all the buyer side apps to compete with each other and give the customer the best experience. For sellers, again, discoverable by the entire buyer universe with one single registration. It's a low-cost access. You don't have to spend money to acquire any specific, seller side, other parts. Increased profitability because of lower costs, business enhancement analytics. Again, something that ONDC provides. As a seller today, you may not have an access to different kind of seller analytics or buyer side customer analytics that today closed platforms don't provide. But with ONDC, you will have access to analytics from a seller side as well. And then similarly for technology companies, you will be able to maximize the value of technology because you will only be bringing to forth, that piece which you are good at, right? So in terms of the entire value chain, you will have to be cognizant of the strengths that you have, and therefore just bring that to the table outside of what you do today. Again, just a small, caveat. We are not an application. We don't have a platform. We don't have a product. So you can't log in anywhere and check for ONDC and buy. We have different buyer apps which are ONDC enabled or protocol enabled, and you will be able to transact there. It's not a single model. There are different models that you can build. Like I said, logistics will only do logistics, or if they want to do seller side, then they can. But in essence, we don't have the entire value chain that needs to be present in one single place. we are not a regulatory and we are not a central intermediary. We are also subject to all the customer protection acts that the government of India has put out. We are an open network of capability of infrastructure, and we have infinite models that can be worked on, and the innovations can be brought on in different fields. Again, we have about, like I said, 50,000 sellers plus, available in over 273 cities. We are servicing even more, and with about more than 66 lakh products. That's it from my side. In case any of you are interested in having a conversation with us, we are right here. Please do write to us on the email here in case you would like to get in touch and be part of the ONDC business revolution. Thank you so much.